Welcome, everyone, to the 1140 Incubator. We are so happy that you all came to join us tonight. As I said, folks will be coming in as we go through this, and maybe you're watching the replay, and that's fine too. But if there is a better time that works to have a live webinar session for you, just let us know. So I'm Shekinah Fashaw. I am the founder of 1140 Glory, and as I said, I'm so excited to do this. If you have been in contact with 1140 Glory for any amount of time, you know that we started out kind of as this conference, maybe really as a blog, but then we built this conference back in 2018, and we've hosted that conference the past 3 years, and we started in 2017, but each year it's gotten better and better. And of course, COVID-19 came around this year and really threw a curveball at all of us, but we've all had to learn how to reset and pivot to make the most of what we're given, right? And so 1140 Glory was kind of already working on an online incubator style school, and so now we're really bringing it to life, and we're so excited that you all are here to launch this thing with us. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to give you just a little background on what 1140 Glory is. If you don't know, the 11 refers to the number of days that it should have taken the Israelites to make it out of bondage in Egypt to the promised land, but that journey actually took them 40 years. And you might be wondering why an 11-day journey took 40 years, and it's right here on the slide in front of you. It's because of complacency, complaining, these mindsets of poverty, disobedience, a lack of drive. And so 1140 Glory was created to help people find the drive that they need to experience the fullness of God's glory, whether that be your purpose, your calling in life, the places that you're supposed to live, work, play. All of those places are places that God has called you to, and we want to be the organization that helps you thrive in those spaces and not just survive in those spaces. So what we've really spent our time doing is developing a platform that would engage culture shifters, that educates us through the use of informational webinars, such as the one that you're on tonight, and that empowers us to do the things that God has called us to do, to really live out that big vision, that God-sized vision that we need the support in the community in order to do so. So tonight, what you're logged into is the 1140 Incubator. So welcome to the Incubator. It's a 3-in-1 incubator. We cover all things ministry, business, and life. This incubator is created to be a members-only style academy with a great community connection. And as we build it out, we're thinking about culture shifters just like you. So whether you're a scholar, a researcher, a visionary, an entrepreneur, a creative, someone who's into photography or videography, if you're a leader, whether that be in government or education or business, wherever it might be, this incubator was created for you, and we want you to take everything that you can out of it. And so what I want you to recognize tonight is that this incubator being created for you will also be shaped by you. That means whatever your needs are, we're here to meet those needs to the best of our ability. So I hope you're ready, because we have a ton in store for the coming months and hopefully years. So the incubator, as I said, is a 3-in-1 incubator. You can visit 1140inc.com to learn more. Each of the incubator site has its own landing page where you can learn about the different topics we'll cover. You can also see more about what we're thinking for that area, but also provide us feedback on what you think you would like to get out of that area. So for the next 5 or so hours, you can become a member of the incubator and receive 60 days free access. So if you're looking for the perfect time to become a part of the incubator, it's tonight. It's right now. After this call, make sure you log on to 1140inc.com and become a member of our platform. We are so excited. I had a call last night with a friend who said, oh my gosh, Shekinah, this website's amazing. All the content that you all are putting out is amazing. I just knew I was going to have to budget for it. And even though we're giving you 60 days free, the beautiful part of it is the incubator is only $5 a month. which sounds crazy, I know. And if it was all up to me, it would be absolutely free, honestly. But my team members and psychology won't allow me to make it free, right? So it's only $5 a month, but I guarantee you it will be an investment that will change your life. So we're hoping that you get plugged in today. So I want you to just quickly meet the team. My name is Shekinah. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a doctoral candidate at Brown University. I'm also a productivity strategist. I'm the founder of 1140 Glory. I am an ordained minister. I'm a published author. I'm looking at Johnna because I know she's like, yep, keep going, keep going. I am a busy beast. That's essentially me, but I'm not only busy, I'm very productive. And my passion is really helping people to discover their power that exists on the inside of themselves. And that's why I build platforms like 1140 and the 1140 Incubator. And then you'll hear from Johnna today and learn a little bit more about her. But behind the scenes, we also have Jonathan and China Barnes. And these people are my go-to everyday folks for anything creative, social media, videography. They both launched their businesses right after the 1140 conference back in 2019. And Jonathan has a new business that's focused on creating digital products such as videos and logos, animated logos. Like, I didn't even know those existed until he started making them, and they're absolutely amazing. China also has a business that if you are in ministry, you're a Christian brand, you're a Christian influencer, or you have an actual Christian ministry, China has all the tools you need to build a social media platform that will spread the gospel in the way that you most desire. So China's our go-to girl for that. Also connected to the Incubator, we have Pastor Shirley and Ramel Moore. They are my pastors up here in Providence, Rhode Island, and they are incredible entrepreneurs. They have helped to launch several new businesses in this area and beyond. They are a wealth of knowledge, and the beautiful part about the Incubator is that you don't just get to see these faces. You get to connect with these people, okay? The mac and cheese connoisseur, the video game enthusiast, the Chick-fil-A fanatic. You get to connect with each and every one of these people during 30-minute coaching phone calls or just kind of in conversation in passing. So once again, you don't want to miss out on the Incubator. And as you all know, we are doing our free launch series. So you're here for week 1, which is our Branding 101 with Johnna. Next week, we will have our 7 Mountains of Culture. And if you're wondering what that is, that means you really need to tune in because you will learn so much. I learn so much every time I start to listen and learn more about the 7 Mountains. So make sure you tune in next week, and Shirley will come on back at the end and talk to us a little bit more about what to expect next week. But without further ado, I am super excited to bring on Johnna, and I will give a brief bio, and she will tell a lot more about herself. But really, the bio I want to give is a personal anecdote. So Johnna and I have been working together and kind of trading services, so to speak, since April. And Johnna has been my brand strategist coach. I've been working with her weekly to build the Shekinah Speaks brand. So if you go to ShekinahSpeaks.com, that's all Johnna's work. If you go to @ShekinahCute, you can probably tell on Instagram, you can probably tell the difference between when I was doing my own social and when she started doing my social. And honestly, I probably would not put out content if it wasn't for Johnna. So she works miracles. And I will say in the past, what has it been, 3 months? I've gained over 200 new followers on social media. So if you're kind of into the social media numbers and figuring out your audience and that sort of thing, you know exactly what that means. And I haven't had any free giveaways, any other sort of thing to get people to follow me. It's just been all organic growth with Johnna's help in building the strategy. So I'm so excited to have her tonight. And I want you all to stay tuned until the end because we have a free gift that is coming at you. And we want you to make sure that you get all the information that you can from Johnna. I know she is super excited to get started. So I don't want to take any more time, and I'm going to let her take it away. But before I go, I just want you all to drop in the chat where you're from, what you're looking forward to getting out of tonight's session, and Yeah, I'll see y'all on the other side. Johnna, feel free to go ahead and share your screen and take over. Welcome again, everyone.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to share my screen to make sure everybody is able to see it. Shekinah, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. I can see your screen. It looks good.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. For those of y'all who don't know, I know Shekinah just talked a little bit about the productivity coaching that she does. But if there is one thing that I will say as someone who's recently stepped into full-time entrepreneurship, productivity and time management is so huge. And Shekinah has helped me more than I can even say. Sometimes I am just a mess when it comes to keeping everything organized, staying productive, and she has been such a blessing in that area. So thank you so much. I love getting to trade services and learn from each other. And with that being said, like Shekinah said, we have a lot of ground to cover. I don't want to waste any time, so I am going to dive right in. If you have any questions at all during the presentation, any comments, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We're going to be monitoring them the entire time, so I will do my best to get to every question, comment, and keep it as interactive as we can while still kind of powering through everything. So I want to start off giving you a little bit more background about who I am and what I do. So I am a boutique brand strategist, boutique meaning that I use a really customized, tailored approach with every client that I serve in the small business industry. I recently relocated to Dallas, Texas from Atlanta with my husband and our dog Nala. So we've been here for just under 6 months now. And I've been operating in full-time entrepreneurship for about 1.5 years now. So prior to that, I worked in the marketing industry with nonprofits. I worked in the Western agriculture industry for a little while, did some stuff with e-commerce. So really working with brands all across the sector. But my actual formal education is in psychology. So I studied psychology and child development. I've really always been fascinated by the mind, and I kind of just fell into marketing, honestly, right out of college. And I remember thinking, you know, like none of this stuff is going to translate. Like none of this has anything to do with marketing. And the more I really dove into the communications and marketing industry, the more I realized it had so much impact, the psychology, just the study of the mind in general when it comes to branding and comes to marketing. All right. This is a little bit of background about who I've worked with. So I've worked with several small businesses, nonprofits, personal brands, and they have ranged from industries like consulting, public relations, wholesale and retail, e-commerce, all over, but I really love working with solopreneurs and small business brands. And so that is going to be a big part of our focus today when we talk about cultivating a personal brand, cultivating a business brand, and cultivating a brand within your ministry, kind of how that all works together. All righty. So this is going to be our main focus for today. So first, we're going to talk about just getting a really good working definition of branding, talking about what that is. Then we're going to talk about personal branding, business branding, what's the difference between the two, and where ministry falls in. We're going to then talk about the key components of a solid brand strategy. So there's actually 6 elements of a brand strategy that we're going to dive really deep into. And finally, we're going to talk about what you can do right now to take your business brand, your personal brand, or your ministry brand to the next level. So I really want to make sure that you have some good, actionable takeaways so you can leave this feeling not only like you learned something, but that you can apply it now. I think that's really important when we're kind of getting all of this information loaded onto us. We need to make sure that it's tangible and, you know, we have a strategy to implement at the end of it. All right, so first let's talk about what branding is. So if you have any ideas yourself on what you feel branding is to you, please feel free to drop that in the chat. I'm going to see if I get any responses there. But I'm going to go ahead and let you all know that what I hear from most people when it comes to what is branding, they give me all of the visuals, right? So they're like, branding is your logo or your website, your marketing materials, your business card. And while I do want to say, yes, that is part of your brand strategy, it really is only one facet of your overall strategy. So is it important? Yes. Is it the end all and be all of having a strong brand? Not at all. And so I really want to make the distinction here that yes, part of your branding is your visuals, but this is a really good working definition that I love for branding that states, branding is the process of revealing a holistic picture of an organization to its audience by curating, one, a perception, which is how your brand is perceived by your audience. Two, the experience that a consumer has with your brand at every touch point. Touch point meaning maybe that's on your social media, maybe it's through your newsletters, maybe it's you have a store and it's my in-person experience, my customer service, things like that. And then finally, the essence. So that is the intrinsic nature of your brand, your core identity, your values, your principles, the entire foundation which your brand is built upon. So these are really the three main elements that go into a strong brand. Another definition that really sums it up and puts it really concisely is a brand is not just a product or a promise or a feeling. It is the sum of all of the experiences you have with a brand. And when I say the experiences you have with a brand, I'm talking about the consumer. So you being the person experiencing it. I know a lot of times we may have a perception of what our brand is, and we may think that it's going to reach a certain audience. And then we start doing a little digging and we find out that is not the way that our target audience is actually perceiving our brand. So it's important to note that your brand is so much more than your visuals, right? It's your story, your message, your audience, and ultimately the ability that you have to connect with the audience on a meaningful level that's going to set you apart from others in your industry. All right, before we go any deeper, any questions on exactly what a brand is or the elements that are composed in branding? All right. So what we're going to do now, we're going to really break down the difference. I know in the age of social media, we all kind of have this presence online, and some people are looking to start a brand and they're like, do I make it separate from my personal? What's the difference in growing a personal brand versus a business brand? And when do I do each one? So I really want to make sure that's clear for us. All righty. So we're going to talk about personal brands first. So I want to preface by saying every single one of us has a personal brand. We all have a way that we show up in the world, whether it is where we spend our time, who we spend it with, what we spend our time doing. These are all components of your individual personal brand. So when you're looking to incorporate your business or your services into that brand, it's going to be crafted around the identity that you create for yourself. So your lifestyle, your interests, your habits. So we typically see this in service-based industries. So let's say you are a author, or you're a consultant, or you're a speaker and you're offering your services up. This is typically where you see businesses encompassed within the personal brand. A business brand, on the other hand, this is built around the identity you create for your organization. So the difference here is you have your own personal identity, but when you have a business brand, it also has to have its own identity, its own set of values. when we typically see business brands, we're looking more toward maybe your e-commerce stores or a nonprofit, or maybe you have a subscription-based business. These are companies that are more likely to take on their own identity as a whole. It may be a company that you're trying to grow and scale and eventually sell. We see that a lot more in business brands as opposed to personal brands, because if you think about it, a personal brand kind of grows as you do. It evolves with you. So let's say, I become a new mother, my personal brand might start to evolve with that journey. I might start sharing a lot more about the journey of motherhood and family life and things like that. So when you have a personal brand, it kind of grows as you do, where when you have a business brand, you're looking at doing a total rebrand if you want to change the core foundation of that identity. All right. And actually, you know what? Before we go into this, I do want to note, so if we're looking specifically within ministry to say, okay, well, where does ministry fit in to the personal brand and to the business brand? Let's take a church, for example. There's so many kinds of ministry. So for this example, I'm going to say a church organization. Well, of course, that is a nonprofit. But the difference here is, if you remember, the first thing I said about business brands are they are built around the identity you create for your business or organization. Well, when we're dealing with ministry, when we're dealing with the kingdom, that identity and set of core values is already done for you. So we want to make sure that we are staying rooted in the core values of the gospel. And then we're just tweaking the message. We all have a different audience that we are speaking to. So that's where we start to really build upon that brand identity. Okay, so the core values, the identity, it's going to be essentially the gospel, winning souls to the kingdom. So I just wanted to make that distinction there. But if you're building a business, you really have to do a little bit of extra work to craft that identity. Okay, so just to recap those three, why they matter. Personal brands matter because even when you aren't selling something, you are still standing for something. If I go to your social media right now, you might not be selling something, but I'm pretty sure I could find out a bit about who you are just by scrolling through your posts, seeing the type of content that you share, that sort of thing. So really keep that in mind, that even though you might not be selling, you are still standing for something. And it's important that if you want to leverage a personal brand and you want to start offering services and you want to incorporate a business into that personal brand, then what you're standing for really needs to line up with what you're offering. With business branding, again, the important takeaway here is it needs to have an identity of its own. Yes, it can be an extension of your personal brand. So one thing that comes to my mind right off the top is Kylie Jenner and Kylie Skin, right? So she has a business. It's an extension of her Kylie Jenner brand, but at the end of the day, Kylie Skin has its own set of principles, its own core values, and it operates independently of her. She leveraged her personal brand and used her name to create it, but at the end of the day, you see that it has its own separate website, its own separate page, that sort of thing. And then finally, within ministry, the biggest takeaway here is it's going to be so important to not compromise the identity of the gospel for the identity of the brand. That is if there's anything that we take away when it comes to building a brand within ministry, it's this. We want to keep our identity rooted in the foundations of the gospel. All right. Any questions on kind of distinguishing the difference between those three before we spearhead on? Okay, let's see. Don't think I see any. Awesome. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about are what are the elements of a strong brand strategy. And if I'm being honest, there's probably about 15 to 20 elements, but what I've done is put them into 6 categories that I think are going to be really easy for us to kind of work through and understand while still encompassing all of the different parts that go into actually creating a solid brand strategy. All right, so here is a brief overview. We're going to go into each one of these in more detail, but essentially we've got our internal brand, our audience, and we're going to get into the demographics and psychographics and all of that fun stuff that goes into finding out who our audience is, our position, the brand personality, the brand messaging, and then ultimately the brand identity. So like I said in the very beginning, a lot of people, when they think, what is a brand? They're looking at this 6th element right here. And they're like, okay, it's my name, my logo, my color palettes, typography, all of that. So as you can see, yes, that's a part of it, but there's also all of these other elements to consider. And so that's what I really want to dive into today. Okay. All right, we're going to start with our internal brand. So if you think, let's think of ourselves as people first, right? We all have a set of core beliefs and values that enable us to live the life that we live. We operate out of a set of core values, hopefully. We each do things that are important to us, things that matter. It could be your faith, maybe it's your family, things like that that really make up who you are as a person. So your brand, whether it's a personal brand, a business brand, it also needs to have a set of core values, a purpose, and a mission tied to it. So when we talk about your purpose, ultimately, and I'm sure you all have heard the question, you know, what is your why? Well, this is the question that we ask of brands. What is the problem that you solve? You know, it has to be bigger than my why is I just want to make more money and work for myself. You know, that's great. And those are great goals to have. But at the end of the day, your purpose has to be tied to something bigger if you're really going to have long lasting impact. Your mission, that's going to be what are you committed to doing day to day within your brand. So I know a lot of times your mission and your vision can seem like they're kind of the same thing and we're not really sure what the difference is. But when we think of our mission, we want to think, what are you committed to within the day-to-day of your brand? When we think of your vision, we want to think big picture. Within the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see this going? How do you see your brand developing? Okay, so vision is big picture, while mission is kind of day to day. And then finally, your core values. So these are the principles upon which you operate. So they're going to be very closely tied into your purpose. All right, next is your audience. So the biggest thing when it comes to understanding who your audience is going to be understanding their behaviors, their demographics, which is going to be their age, their gender, their income, maybe what region they live in. These are demographics. These are data that we collect on people to say, okay, you're in the target that I'm trying to reach. And then we have our psychographics. So our psychographics are, what do people do for fun? You know, what kind of music do they listen to? What kind of car do they drive? Sort of what drives their behaviors. So we need to know the what, which is the demographics, and also the why. Why do they behave the way they do? What type of things do they enjoy doing? And so once we really get a grip on who our audience is, then we're one step closer to understanding, okay, you know, I have a problem that I solve. Now I'm understanding who has that problem. You know, it's one thing to know that I solve this problem and I know that people need it, but I'm not exactly sure who. Well, this is going to help us figure that out. So, for example, let's say you are a life coach, okay, and you solve the problem of difficult work-life balance. So now the next question is, well, who has a problem with work-life balance? Maybe small business owners, maybe working moms. And we're asking ourselves, what are the impacts of that in their life? And what I mean by that is the impact of having difficult work-life balance might be stress, anxiety. And so as we start to identify who that audience is and we understand what drives their behaviors, we understand their pain points, then we can create a strategy to reach them and to speak to them in a way that they're most likely to receive our message. All right. Okay. Let's see if our video will play. So I'm not sure if you guys can see this up close or not. Hopefully I can get it to play. But what I did here, I was looking at some different organizations and different businesses that I think do a really good job of understanding who their target audience is. And one of the examples of that, let's see, looks like it's having a little bit of trouble loading. That's okay. If you look at, this is a screenshot from Transformation Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. But as I was scrolling through their Instagram, I noticed some key things pointing out to me. One was the age of the people that were presented in a lot of the pictures. So I saw a lot of millennial aged people. I saw some young families. I saw some youth in there. And so as I read through this, and I even kind of read some of their sermon series and some of the captions that they were writing, it's very clear that they know that their audience is primarily comprised of people who are in that young adult age. Okay, so that's the type of understanding we want to have. We want to make sure if we're going to spend all this time crafting a message, you know, writing newsletters and doing all this stuff, that it's reaching the people that need it. Alrighty, any questions when it comes to audience? I think one thing that can get a little overwhelming sometimes, it's like, okay, well, I know I need to know all of this information, but how do I actually figure it out? And one thing that I would suggest there's a lot of free analytics that you can get online, whether that's from your social media, whether that's from Google Analytics and having a Facebook pixel set up on your website. So there's ways to kind of garner that data. But I would say honestly, and probably the best and most effective way, if you're a small business or you're a personal brand and you're on social, talk to your audience. Do surveys on Instagram. You know, we have poll features, we have question and answer features. There's so many ways to actually engage with our audience and understand what they want to see from us, what their pain points are, what they're struggling with. And I think if we really engage and have some authentic connections with our audience, we're going to start really honing in on who that target is. All right, so we'll go ahead and move right into position. So when I talk about position, what I'm talking about is your position within your industry. So when I say market landscape, I'm asking the question, what does the competition within your industry look like? And I think it's really important to do this research beyond just a Google search to say, what are other life coaches in my area? You know, really spend some time looking into other experts, looking into other authorities within your industry and see what they're doing, and see what they're not doing. You know, I think a big part of identifying what your unique value proposition is, which means what you have to offer that others don't, is understanding where those gaps are in the industry. Okay, so let's say I am a sleep consultant for newborns. I really want to put myself in the shoes of the mom of a newborn and think, what is she looking for? Research as if you were your audience looking for the service that you have, and start to see where you find some gaps and where you can ultimately fill those gaps in. I think a lot of times we're like, well, the market is just so saturated and I don't know what I have to offer that's unique. But at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be, you know, creating some new technology or, you know, hiring a company in Silicon Valley to bring this new element into your company. I mean, that's great. Those are great things. But at the end of the day, I think we just have to get creative with our offers. Like I stated in the very beginning, I'm a boutique brand strategist, meaning I work specifically with small businesses. I take an individualized, tailored approach with them, and that allows me to be set apart from a lot of the others within my industry. So that's just an example that you could figure out, what do I offer that is a little bit different than the others within the industry. All right, next we're going to talk personality. So does anyone know who Tabitha Brown is by chance? I know a couple of you because we've definitely chatted about her. She's amazing. So if you don't know who Tabitha Brown is, she is a food vlogger. She's a vegan. She's always sharing her recipes. She kind of brings in these motivational messages into it. And she has so much life infused into everything that she does. And so the reason that I highlighted her here is because it's so important for your brand to take on a personality of its own. It has its own unique tone of voice. Now, if you're a personal brand, that tone of voice is actually yours. You know, if you're a person who is really funny and lighthearted, you don't want to have to push those things to the side to create this other personal brand. That is a part of your personal brand. And that's why people like Tabitha do so well. She is so unapologetically herself, and it shows. So a couple of statistics that I just thought were really interesting. Some brand studies have shown that 65% of customers say that they're emotionally connected to a brand in a way that makes them feel like the company cares about them. Okay, so it builds a connection. Having a tone of voice helps you build a connection with the brand. It also helps you build trust. So another statistic stated that 64% of customers cited that shared values are the primary reason to trust a company among those who said they have a brand relationship. So I don't know about you all, but I know I have definitely gone out of my way to support brands because I knew they were in alignment with my core values. And they were very vocal about that. They understood we might not be for everyone, but we are for our people. And that really drew me into them and made me be like, you know what, I'm going to support you instead of Joe Schmo over here. And then also having a tone of voice within your brand has been shown to increase revenue. So one survey showed that the average increase attributed to presenting the brand consistently, estimated by those organizations with brand consistency issues, is 23%. So basically they took some organizations that had consistency issues already and said, okay, let's have a consistent tone of voice and show up consistently and see how this actually affects revenue. And it increased it by 23%, not by selling anything differently, not by changing their pricing, nothing. Literally just by showing up and being consistent. And then finally, it creates a memorable image of your brand and the people behind it. So we have studies that show that the imagery of a brand, also the colors, the fonts, that can improve brand recognition by up to 80%. So I included that. We're going to go a little bit deeper into that when we talk about brand identity, but ultimately your identity is a part of your personality. It's a reflection of that. So I really just wanted to point out here that while we might not think it's that important to really show personality in our business, it is a key factor in long-lasting success. All right. Alrighty, next we're gonna go into messaging. And this is where a little bit of the psychological component is gonna get brought in to our presentation today. So when it comes to messaging and specifically storytelling, we have learned over time this is so powerful as being a part of your brand strategy. And if you think about it, centuries ago, one of the only ways that information got passed down from generation to generation was through storytelling. We told stories. We see this in religion. We see it in folklore. We see it in mythology. We told stories that would be easily recognizable, and that was how we passed information on. So there is actually studies that have shown that we're 22 times more likely to remember story-based information than we are fact-based information. And one way that this translates into your brand strategy is behavioral psychologists. They've kind of boiled down the way that we make decisions as humans. And they've done this by separating it into two systems, which you see here. You see system 1 on the left and system 2. So this is the process of how we make a choice. System 1, that's going to be our gut reaction, our innate emotions asking us, am I in danger? Am I safe? Is this valuable to me? And then that is followed by our rational processing, our logical thinking. And so a lot of times with brands, we think that people need to see the facts. They need to see the facts first. But in actuality, we're very emotional beings, and we tend to make emotional decisions, and then we back those decisions up with sound logic. So your system 1, it's subconscious. You're not even thinking about it when it happens. And then system 2, that's when you start to go through, okay, logically, why should I choose this brand over the other one? I might have been drawn in because they spoke directly to my issue. They might have said, you know, a lot of new business owners are struggling with productivity and struggling to find balance within their personal and their business life. Immediately, I'm like, I'm a small business owner. I'm trying to get a work-life balance underway. And so they didn't even tell me anything that they can really do yet. They just spoke to my situation. And so I think it's important that when we're crafting the messaging and the story of our brand that we're going to share, that we start it out by actually speaking into the situation of our audience, and then follow that up with the credentials, with the facts, and the logical reason of why they should choose you. Hopefully that makes sense. I know I tried to really break it down into the two systems to make it really simple. This goes so deep into neuroscience and behavioral psychology, but ultimately the takeaway is we make emotional decisions first. And what we want to understand is when we're communicating with someone, we're first saying, this is how it's going to make your life better, number 1. And then number 2, these are the logical reasons you should choose me. Maybe that's your pricing or, you know, whatever. All right, and finally, and I saved this for last because, like I said, many people think it comes first, but after all of those things are said and done, that's when you have your brand identity. It's like, I'm missing one photo there, but that's all right. So your brand identity, this is where your name, your logo, your style guide, your color palettes, all of the fun stuff, in my opinion, because I love design. So this is the part that I have so much fun with. But this is the final step in that branding process. So, and the reason that it doesn't come first is because the colors that you choose are going to be a reflection of your audience. The brand name that you choose is going to be a reflection of your purpose and your core values. So all of these visual components, they actually tie back in to your core values, your internal brand. And so if we don't do that first, if we just skip to, here's my name, here's my logo, here's my colors, and I'm just going to throw it out there, then you can end up finding yourself in a constant circle of, we need to rebrand. This no longer properly represents us. It's time to redo it. I need to redo my logo. My colors don't work anymore. All of these things. But if we really do the digging, the researching, and all of those things beforehand, then naturally your identity is going to flow from that, and it's going to be a lot more representative of what you offer and who you are. All right, so I know I just ran really fast through a lot of information, and so I want to make sure that we have some takeaway items that you can start doing now. So the first thing that I would highly suggest is to identify the type of brand you're trying to develop. You know, like we all know at this point, every one of us has a personal brand. So the question is, if you're looking to, maybe you already have a business or you're looking to start a business, the question is, does that business tie into my personal brand? Am I a consultant? Am I a speaker? Am I a coach? Or am I building a business where I'm going to have to craft a separate identity for that? So really identify the type of brand that you're trying to develop, and also understand that even when you are establishing a business brand, your personal brand can still be an extension of that. You know, let's take ministry, for example. If I have a church and that church has a presence online, and then I see the pastors and I go to their page and they're like in the club and they're like doing all this crazy stuff, I'm going to be like, I'm supposed to trust you with my soul? Like, you know, that just doesn't make any sense. So you really want to make sure that even when you do have it separate, there isn't a complete disconnect from your core values as a person. And then after you identify the type of brand that you're trying to develop, I want you to go through those 6 elements and ask yourself, okay, where do I need some more clarity? Maybe my mission statement was kind of started, but it's really not that clear. Or maybe I know a little bit about my audience, but I could spend a couple hours throughout the week talking to them, surveying them, trying to really get more information on who they are. So kind of assess where you are within those 6 elements. And one thing that we have done is I've created a brand assessment download. It's going to be emailed to you. And so that's going to kind of walk you through the process of grading yourself on your own brand, as well as give you some templates to go and fill out information. So definitely make sure you look into that. I think it's going to be really helpful. And then finally, once you've completed that brand assessment and you've identified the type of brand that you're developing, then it's just time to implement. So you may need to start pivoting the type of content that you're putting out to align more with your values and your personal brand. It's going to look different for every person, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure we have clarity. We want to make sure we've identified our issues. And then finally, we'll go ahead and implement those strategies. All right. I'm going to leave my information here just for a minute. So if you are interested in learning more when it comes to brand strategy, maybe you want to book a one-on-one, I will say there's going to be a lot of content inside of the incubator itself. So I highly encourage, if you have not already signed up, I would do so before the end of the night for sure. But if you want to book a one-on-one session, I am more than happy to connect. So please feel free to reach out. And I'm going to open up the chat in a second, see if we've got any questions. I hope this was valuable for you all.
This is definitely great and valuable information. I hope everyone has had a moment to take in and digest. I know we went really fast, and that was one of Johnna's concerns. She's like, I want to make sure they have high value content and that they get it all. But as Johnna mentioned, inside the incubator, we can definitely dive deeper into each of the 6 elements. So even inside of the chat, if you let us know, is that a class that you would be interested in? Maybe 6 weeks, each week walking through an element. That could be something that we do. I do see a couple of questions, Johnna. one from Shirley and one from Sierra.
All right. Okay, I see here. What if you don't know how to create content? Is that because you're not clear on your brand? So it could be because you're not clear on your brand. It could also just be because maybe you don't like creating content, you're just not very design savvy and that sort of thing. But I would say when it comes to, if we're not just talking, social media posts, but just content in general related to the brand, I think if there's a fogginess there, it's probably because within one of those 6 elements, something's not clear. We either don't know who we're talking to, so our messaging can get a little bit distorted, or we're not sure what our own unique value add is. I think that can be an issue a lot of the times. We just lump ourselves in with everyone else who does what we do and don't understand that we have something unique to offer. So I definitely think that can be part of it, having lack of clarity.
I think Sierra asked for getting a copy of your PowerPoint. Do you mind sharing that with folks?
Sure.
Okay, we can send that out via email and also post it inside of the incubator. And then Kendra had a couple of questions. She says, I manage 2 social media sites, a private school and a church, because their social media pages have been up for about 2 years. Do you suggest starting fresh or move forward with implementing new content?
That's a great question. So I would say move forward with implementing new content, but if you're talking about social, as you get that new content out, you can start to archive content that is no longer relevant. But I don't want you to just, delete everything and now you don't have any content at all. So I would say start getting the content out first, and then make sure to go back to your old posts. Don't delete them. That doesn't work as well for the algorithm. I would say make sure if you're going to get rid of something, archive it. There's an archive button on Instagram.
Tara says, once you have a clear vision and brand, what do you do next to get started? Do you start with a logo, website, or social media account?
I think this depends on who your audience is. So one part of the audience that we didn't get to dive as much into is their digital footprint. So what I mean by that is knowing where your audience exists in the digital space. So if your audience is mainly, preteens and teenagers, then you should probably get on TikTok. Well, they have a lot going on right now, but regardless. But, if you're talking to professionals, people who are maybe in their 20s and getting their career started, then you might want to start gearing your content toward LinkedIn. So I think it depends on who your audience is. I don't think you have to show up everywhere all at once. I think you should find out maybe 1 or 2 platforms that your audience is located in really heavily, and then start there. And I would also always suggest, if you have a personal brand, you have a business brand, you need a website. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you don't own social media. So if they shut down Instagram tomorrow, or they shut down Facebook tomorrow, and that was where all of your clients were, all of your audience was, and you have no other kind of home for them to go back to, then you can end up losing a lot of business. So I would say identifying the 1 or 2 platforms and showing up there, and then working on that website from there. It could just be even a landing page, but have something that is your own for people to go back to.
Absolutely. Great advice. And the last question we're going to take for tonight, how do you design your social media? What are your suggestions on apps to use to help with design?
Okay, so the biggest one, actually the one that I used to make this presentation today, is Canva. So I'm not sure if you all, I know some of you are definitely familiar with Canva. If you create content, you probably use Canva like me all the time. But that is one app. It's completely free. I think that would be really helpful with creating social media content. Kendra says, love Canva. Yes, me too. But yes, I would say Canva is one. If you're getting more advanced, sometimes I use Photoshop, but that's usually not very necessary. But yeah, if you all know of any others, I know we have some other content creators here. So if you have any other ones, but I would say Canva will probably do most everything you need to do with social.
I'm going to plug the social sub as well. China
Yes.
is on, and she's been commenting a little bit, and you can check out China's page to learn a little bit more about the social media tools that you can use. And if people are really interested in social media, that's definitely something that I think China would be willing to talk through with us as well. She commented that InShot app is great for video. So I just want to take this moment, and at social sub, at the social sub .llc on Instagram. And she does like a tutorial Monday, which has really been helpful for me, and how to make your captions fancy, all kinds of stuff. So that's really great. Thank you so much, again, Johnna, for your presentation and for sharing with us all this wisdom and knowledge that you have. This was a wonderful presentation. So if you all would just stick with us just 5 minutes longer, I would like to bring Shirley Moore on to share a little bit about what we are doing next week. And I also would like everyone to take a moment to check their emails if you can. If you did not receive an email from us with the download from Johnna and myself, then please send your email to 1140 in the chat, and we'll be sure to get you that email as soon as possible. So next week is all about the 7 mountains, and I'm going to allow Shirley to take it away and give us a quick overview.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us today. It's been an exciting night. Johnna, you killed it. My husband's over here like, I'm ready to get started right now. Call her. Great job. That you are what we need. So I am really super excited to not just introduce the 7 mountains of culture to all of you, but also to introduce an amazing friend and speaker, Pastor Troy Good, who's going to come to share about the 7 mountains of culture. If you don't know about that, the 7 mountains of culture is basically getting us from inside our church to be the kingdom of God in the world. And how do we establish kingdom? How do we walk in our dominion and authority? And how do we excel for God in advancing his kingdom on earth is really what the 7 mountains of culture is all about. And so I'm really excited. I hope that you will join us next week, because it is said to be amazing and will deliver on so many things. If you have questions about how do I fit into ministry, I have all these gifts and all these talents, but I'm not sure. Let me tell you, there's a mountain that you were created for that is waiting for you to be released in your authority and to walk in your dominion and take it by force. Next week, we're going to learn how to do that.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Shirley. Again, everyone, please visit 1140inc.com to become a member today. It costs you nothing for the next 60 days. And then after that, it is only $5. I'm telling you, all the information we are giving away, I would love to give away for free, but folks like Shirley and Johnna and China and everyone else who's on the team will not allow me to do that. So it's only $5 a month to build a network, to build the skills that you need. We're not just telling you what to do, but we're giving you the tools on how to do it. So again, thank you everyone for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. Feel free to reach out to us at any moment in time. It's been a pleasure being here with all of you. Thank you so much.